Going to be looking at areas in which youth can economically involve themselves in. Now, I want to read for you some stats here of our topic this morning, and I'm going to introduce that topic shortly, and the guests who are joining us to get into that conversation is that in the country, the average age of a farmer is still at 52 years of age. 52 years. So essentially means that the youth, who are the bulk of the population, if the latest census report is anything to go by, are not involved in farming in the country. Now, again, another stat, that the biggest employer in the country is agriculture. The biggest contributor to the country's GDP is agriculture. In fact, if you look at the Economic Report 2022, that it is quite hard for you to know how many people are essentially employed in this particular sector because of how many there are. That the informality of small businesses in the country, majority of them are enshrined within this particular sector, which makes it quite important then for us to talk about today. We're going to look at some of the value chains that you can log on as a youth, especially when we talk about farming. And it's a good thing that we have youth who are going to join us then for this conversation. And on set already is a man who's not a new face to us here. We do have Kennedy Sankara, who's the National Youth Policy Advocate. Kennedy, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, thank you, Simba.
Happy to have you around. Also joining us shortly, we're going to be joined by one Aluso Felix, who's a field tech assistant at Hello Tractor. Fantastic. Sankara, let me start like this. That these numbers, if they're anything to go by, they are a true testament that majority of youth have not known how to get into the agriculture sector.
That's very true, but a lot of factors, Simba, contribute to that. Yeah. As we talk even about of youth complacence in leadership, we also see the same attribute being taken to agriculture, and then we ask ourselves, what is the issue? Personally, I took agriculture in high school, yes, and it was one of my favorite subjects. I could score as best as I could. So agriculture, generally, there is little primitive perception amongst young people on what agriculture entails. Yes. Everyone is running to do a business course, and no one wants to take agriculture, that they don't want to get dirty. And ask them, I mean, why don't you want to get dirty and yourself? The life we are living is a product of dirty, and someone has to go to the farm to produce vegetables, all those sorts of agricultural production that yes, can sustain the life. You just mentioned that our GDP, 80% contribution of our GDP is a product of agriculture. The best employer locally is agriculture. And then the average age of a farmer is at 52. To yes, me, today my dad is around 61. Now you can talk of my dad being a farmer, and myself at 25, I'm not a farmer. Yeah. The issue here is, then we ask ourselves, what has been not happening? Is it laziness from the government side? Has there not been incentives and initiative to push the young people into venturing into agriculture? Is there no adequate or reliable support from the government and responsible institutions? Is the environment generally not enabling for a young person to venture into agriculture? Is it about the land ownership system, the land tenure system, the old land tenure system, where the old people perceive or are perceived to be the owners of the land? And a young person, when you want to venture into agriculture or small scale production, you have to consult with the senior citizens, and they would tell you that, you know, this land, you leave it there because of this and that reason. That's an issue that I've even had with my grandma. My grandma gave me a small piece of land somewhere in Kisumu, Chiga. Yeah. But again, when I want to do some production in it, she has some reservations, you know. So all these things contribute into the general low statistical records being witnessed in agriculture. But agriculture is very, very important. And let me tell you, for you to practice agriculture, you don't even need to sit in a university or college class. All you need is knowledge and information and the people around who are able and willing to disseminate this information to the farmers. I'm pretty sure, as we're speaking about e-farming here today, there is a farmer who doesn't know anything about e-farming. There's a farmer who only knows that the government can avail a subsidized fertilizer, and the subsidized fertilizer, the mode of application, all these things culminate into inadequate information dissemination to the farmers. And that is the young people. What are we doing as a country? What are the potential incentives or initiatives that we put place as a government to attract young people into farming? If you see the government lowering the cost of importing a chopper and then still buying a subsidized fertilizer, it's misplaced priority.
Yes.
You find agricultural colleges. Which colleges or courses have the government subsidized to encourage more of the young people to participate and register into those courses? Because we don't even have adequate agricultural extension officers as we speak today. You look at the ratio of one agricultural extension officer in a district, in a constituency, it is quite big. So it's not about young people not participating in agriculture. Yes. If we are not going to address the why, then we are not really going to have the conversation.
Yes, let's look at the why. That the only thing that we define as agriculture, Sankara, is somebody going to the shamba. But then within the agriculture sector, we have a lot of value chains that have essentially not been marketed to the young people in the country. Case in point, e-farming is essentially looking at different ways that we achieve a product through this particular sector by not relying on the traditional means. That we have marketing, we have processing, we have just different ways of then getting a product out of this particular sector. But it has not been sold out to majority of the youth in the country, Sankara.
Well, before I even get to the complaint side or my opinion, I would say bootstrapping is also another potential area where the farmer, the buyer, and the young people can venture into. Bootstrapping basically translates to venturing into a productive and progressive business without much financial constraints. EM is a perfect example. I am a dairy farmer. I don't have reliable market to supply my milk. You are an investor with limited financial resources. You can venture into value addition by taking my milk on credit. I'm pretty sure as a farmer, at the end of the month, I'm going to get something from Simba, who is a retailer. Simba is going to employ young people or any other citizen in the value addition chain. By doing so, we are creating jobs, we are adding value to our products, we are getting money. So both the farmer and the entrepreneur, it's a mutual gain-gain situation, because the farmers do not have adequate milk storage facilities. These make farmers sell their milk at a throwaway price. If we only harness the communication between the farmer and the buyer, we are going to create a lot of things. So going straight to what we are talking about today, e-farming, I would begin by giving my personal opinion or definition of what e-farming is. Just as we know what farming is, e-farming to me is the use of digital tools, technologies, and data-driven approaches to optimize various aspects of agricultural production. Yes. So the essential point here is digital tools, digital technologies, and why are we doing all this? To optimize. Generally, e-farming involves the integration of digital or technology into the traditional methods of farming with an aim of optimizing the process by improving the entire agricultural production through sustainability, productivity, and also efficiency. You know, when we use examples of digital tools I would give you, you know, when I say efficiency, productivity, and sustainability, and there is no sufficient reliable evidence.
Yes.
For example, the e-farming practices, precision farming, use of automation, remote sensing, and data analytics or analytics.
Yes.
It depends on what someone can pronounce.
Yes.
All this culminate into e-farming. And therefore, the question we are asking ourselves, why e-farming? Why e-farming? You know, when we integrate digital technology into the traditional farming system, we are going to achieve 3 objectives. Number 1 is sustainability or productivity and efficiency. You don't need to put in more energy into doing something, but you can use knowledge and power to actually get your work done within seamlessly, within the shortest time possible.
Yes.
Now, we are talking of the integration, and then we're asking ourselves, why e-farming? E-farming seeks to solve or gain 3 or 4 at most. Number 1 is, when we venture into e-farming, we are going to optimize agriculture by maximizing on yields, minimizing on inputs, and controlling the external factors, generally improving agriculture as a whole.
Yes.
So, all this said and done, we are talking about machines, and you know, when you're setting, we will move to the phase of now setting the farm or the digital farming system. So I was talking of the components. Look at something to do with the, let's say, farm or software or farm software management.
Yes.
This is the digital command center of inventories. You can access data, financial records, and very other reliable informations at the right or information at the right time. When the right information in agriculture aims at helping the farmer to make informed decisions and optimize on resource allocation. Our aim with e-farming is to optimize resource allocation, optimize agricultural production. Everything is about reducing cost while increasing yield.
Awesome.
In my layman agricultural language, the high school teacher taught me, Mr. David Asothi, Madam Milden, and Dan Otieno. They told me, you put in little, but you gain much.
Awesome.
So, you know, I was giving a technical example like the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, the UAVs, or what we famously refer to as drones.
Okay.
You know, drones are fitted with high-resolution cameras and high-technology imaging systems. They can fly up, flock like birds, take critical information within the farm. This acts as the eye and the ear of the farmer. You don't need to be there physically to monitor various aspects of farming, e.g., the soil condition. We will use the smart sensors. You talk of the crop health. You talk of the weather, the soil moisture, and etc. You can't go dig a piece of land, scoop soil, and then you try squeezing the soil texture through your fingers to test whether is it moist or not. You need digital technology. So then there comes the question, my role as a policy advocate. Are we going to import choppers on subsidized cost, or are we going to ensure that farmers first get information, farmers get access to digital markets where they are going to purchase these particular aforementioned items at a subsidized cost? You know, we are not talking about farming just by taking a djembe, putting it onto your shoulder and going to dig carelessly in the farm. We are talking of a scenario whereby you are going to dig, doing the right thing. You know exactly what you are going to do. And that will drive us to some component or later components of this discussion, where before you settle on a particular mode or the e-farming techniques,
Yes.
you are going to look at the compatibility, the reliability, and the sustainability of the digital tools that you're going to put in place. How will you do that? You will first do your need assessment. Are you troubled with irrigation? Are you troubled with pest control and related issues? Then you go a notch higher, identify available, you classify your needs vis-a-vis the available digital tools.
Yes.
Then you look at the compatibility, reliability, affordability. Then you can initiate the entire process. So, all said and done, look at our farming system. Of all the things I've mentioned, how many farms practice e-farming in Kenya? Then the question is why? How peaceful will the government sit and watch the people cry of cost of living?
Yes.
And these are things we can do. In the recent past, during the climate change action, I did interacted with various young people from various African nations, and to be particular from Zimbabwe. And the girl from Zimbabwe I would call Tafadzwa. She's one of the most vocal ladies on matters climate change in Zimbabwe. She was telling me that, you know, in Kenya, as you are crying for the cost of living, in as much as a dollar costs 6,000 Zimbabwean dollar in Zimbabwe, we are pretty okay with that because we can eat. Matebele land, they are specifically for cattle. When you go to other parts of Zimbabwe, we are producing crops. We have enormous, I mean, the production there is, the yields are enough for their consumption and even for sale. So us here, what is the problem? Cartels all over.
Yes.
Try go out there today and speak of initiatives that are going to protect farmers from this lack of information, adequate information. Cartels will do everything possible to ensure that they suppress any attempts that will close the avenues and loopholes of their normal scavenger tactics fields.
At a time when we're saying the policy is not a problem in the country, it is just this policy action that we haven't seen, isn't it?
You know, in other conversations, I have always emphasized that in a country like Kenya, policy formulation ain't an issue. Policy implementation is the biggest elephant in the house. And this is not an accident. Policy implementation failure in this country is a deliberate mechanization and making of persons with vested interest in those particular fields. If you talk about youth and agriculture, you would ask yourself, why should the government not enforce policies that are going to ensure that young people venture into agriculture? If you are telling me that every Form 4 graduate must join NYS, how is that going to help us? You should have told us that every Form 4 graduate must go to an agricultural college. Because we have to address the food sustainability issue. We have to address production. We have to create jobs. We are not going to create jobs and we've overemphasized on importation. I come from Kano area in Kisumu. Kano, in Chiga, a place called Kakwema, they produce rice. When you go to Aero, they produce rice. Then you find some silly government official officiating importation of plastic rice from China. Are you even normal? So who is who?
At a time, Bob was saying that the youth need to get exposed to these policies and also then entice them into agriculture. What do you think we need to start in this conversation for pulling youth into e-farming? If you're saying that, well, the future and the present of agriculture is going to be the youth.
You know, in school we were told that E's are bad grades, but I would tell you for a fact, you need some of three E's in life. That is education, exposure, and experience. The education aspect will help you know all these aspects of e-farming. We are talking about educating the farmers and etc. We need the technocrats, the people who know how to do what, when, how. The exposure. When you walk around, the exposure, the experience of getting how people do their farming in other parts of the country, in other parts of the world, these are what we need. So to kick it off is first to create an enabling environment. Expose these young people to existing agricultural policies. As well, try very much as possible as you can to lure them. At times you have to lure people into this particular program. By doing so, let us also try to elevate the position of farmers economically, especially those who ventured into agricultural production, so that we really know. Being a farmer, there is input-output ratio. So I am not going to take my time, to venture into something that has no element of reciprocity. I need to gain something at the end of the day. So ensure that those farmers who already ventured into business of agricultural production, they feel or have value for whatever it is that they are doing. Let me not do farming and still live in scalar condition, hand-to-mouth economy, as if I don't have something substantial. Let us move the perception of moving the white-collar job perception from young people. It is not a mere verbal discharge. The verbality must also be consistent with the action. Let us also show these young people that it's never a mistake venturing into agriculture. The government should put in policies. Look at what Gaddafi was doing in Libya. When he took over power, Libya was a desert.
Yes.
They would produce crops. Look at countries like Israel. Israel, a desert that is a product of land reclamation. Look at Japan. Japan is an island. They do land reclamation and they produce crops and export. Then a country that experiences tropical rainfalls, sitting closer to the equator, can still talk of high cost of living. And there are arable, riparian lands lying. When I love traveling on a vehicle because flights occasionally limit your exposure. When you sit on a car or a long distance drive, you come to experience life in different areas. When you drive along Nakuru to Kisumu, before you get to Kisumu, you will meet huge tracts of land lying bare and empty. And we are talking of cost of living. We have water in Lake Victoria.
Yes.
The second largest freshwater body in the world after Lake Albert in the US. If we could connect the pipeline from Changamwe in Mombasa all the way to Kisumu, what fails us from or denies us the right and the opportunity to connect fresh water all the way from Kisumu to other parts of the country, so that we really embrace this production. This thing is possible.
But my director tells me, and unfortunately I don't know how we have 1 minute left. Sankara, I want you to summarize it like this in 45 seconds, please, if you may. When you look at where we are in policy, formulation and implementation, in 45 seconds if you can, what needs to be done now for us to start talking about e-farming being a success in the country? And is this a conversation that the government needs to drive, or a conversation that small scaleholder farmers need to drive in the country?
The government, being the custodian of all the rights and everything,
yes,
they need to initiate, they need to involve, they need to engage, they need to enlighten, they need to appreciate. It is that simple. I would not manipulate this into various segments with jargons. No,
yes,
it is simple. Educate, engage, appreciate, and also involve, so that we young people, we can appreciate the aspects of farming. Let us see those farmers enjoy the fulfillment of agriculture. Do not let our farmers cry that a farmer can produce coffee in Mount Kenya. Then instead of the farmer benefiting from the coffee export, a cartel who does not know even how to hold a djembe. Let us strengthen our war on graft. Corruption is one of the things ailing us. The kingdom of cartels, that kingdom is very powerful. You know, a cartel can influence even a case in court to derail a government initiative. Let us be very firm. There comes a time that the right thing must be done by the right person, regardless of what you are going to feel.
Yes. Guess what? That particular statement right there from Sankara essentially ends our show this morning. We do apologize that we didn't have Elias with us right here in the studio. We're going to look for him so that we essentially go back to this conversation again, so we can actually get to make more gains around it. We're talking about e-farming and those particular submissions there by Sankara on exactly what needs to be done around policy, so that the formulated policies then can be implemented in the country if this is going to be a particular success, especially among the youth in the country. For now, we call it quits this morning on The Morning Drift. I'll see you tomorrow for another session. Thank you very much for being with us all the way from 7 a.m. this morning.